Hey, this is Jeff, and welcome back to the Coito Ergo Sum DLC crossover and Lonesome Road. Last time we cleared out the Hopeville military base, and we're ready to move on into town. I mentioned two ways in. You can jump down from the little plaza at the end of the street where we found the detonator, which puts you close to the warhead, but also right in between two marked men encampments, over there. And they'll all come running when you blow it up. Or you can take the main road through the base, which requires picking the lock on this gate. Hard lock. But there's also a third way. If we go up the hill behind the men's barracks, there's a gap in the fence. And I should have been sneaking. It's the farthest point from where we eventually need to go, so we'll need to sneak around or fight basically every marked man in the whole area, but we can take them on in smaller groups. And there's the added bonus that we don't have to backtrack to find all the interesting loot. Thank you, Eddie. But I also saw stairs, yes. So what's up there? Probably some loot, maybe a better sniping position. Mobile artillery on the roof. Some squirrely collision detection. Well, I assume it's that. There's no reason for there to be an actual invisible wall there. Hello. Anyway. Well, whatever it is, we're not jumping off from here. I guess we'll walk back down the stairs like a normal person. Marked men guard outpost. What's in here? Workbench and a reloading bench. I'm fine for the moment, but good to know. Looks like another group of them beyond that fence. Looks like they're behind pretty good cover. There has to be a way to get into this building, or at least onto that scaffolding. And I bet this pile of junk is it. There we go. Now, can we see anybody we couldn't see from ground level? Not really, no. Go around the other side, if we can. Yeah, there's a ledge. Good. Still don't see anybody, though. I see red on the compass, but they must be behind cover. Hey, I do see a warhead. Well, I guess we'll go over there and try to get the drop on them. Red danger graffiti from Ulysses. Wait. Check out the butcher shop before we get committed to another battle. The main thing of note down here is a skill book, but I think there's a first aid kit and some other loot. Food. Booze. Ammo. I'm being picky about what ammo I take because ammo has weight in hardcore mode. And the skill book is right here on the counter. Barter. Don't need it, but that's where it is if you do. And there is a first aid box. Nice. Oh, and if you were thinking Brahmin when I said butcher shop, not exactly. All right. Now we go try to sneak up on those guys, already in caution. Eddie, are you fighting somebody? Yes, that guy apparently. Well, I was going for the headshot, but I'll take shooting the gun out of his hands. Oh, there's somebody else here. I'll get to you in a minute. I want to finish off your friend while he's still disarmed. Good, he didn't follow me. Or maybe he did. NPCs almost never jump off ledges on purpose. Sometimes they fall off if they're in combat, but their AI generally tries to use easily navigable terrain. And there are a lot of rads near that warhead, so I probably shouldn't hang around looting too long. Okay, I want to see what's in the back of this truck before I detonate the warhead. It may or may not make the trailer inaccessible, but it'll definitely scatter all loot to the four winds. Well, not the stuff that's in containers, but anything that's just loose on the floor. Which in this case is just a couple rocket canisters. If a good situation comes up to show off red glare, I will, because it's kind of ridiculous and fun, but it also plays merry hell with loose objects, and I don't want to blow a skill book or one of Ulysses' logs out of the world map. Back off a little bit. Three out of 30. 10% of the way there. There is still red on the map. Just like a standard mini-nuke, the warheads create a pretty intense rad zone when they explode, but it dissipates pretty quickly. We're in danger. Back to caution. Thank you for making a liar of me. For that, you die in vats. Hey, I said they almost never jump off ledges on purpose. And this trailer was already accessible, so that particular warhead wasn't required to move forward or uncover secret loot. Which means I was probably supposed to detonate it from that building where I looked at it through the scope to kill the marked men in this camp without having to fight them. When your only tool's a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. When you have all the tools and every problem still looks like a nail, you may be an idiot. And speaking of Ulysses' logs, I think there's one right around this corner. As long as there aren't any marked men gonna sneak up behind me. No? Eddie caught up. I'm gonna heal that crippled limb just in case running becomes advisable at some point in the near future. Anyway, yes, back in that little alley behind the gate, I'm pretty sure there's another holotape. Average lock. I'm not sure if there's a key somewhere. A lot of times for these type of collectible quests, the game gives you multiple ways to get them, so you aren't penalized for specializing your skills in one direction or another. And there it is. But this might be a case where it says, you saw the warning sign that you should be level 25 or higher to do this DLC, and if your lockpick skill isn't 50 by now, no tape for you. Alright, I think that's everything we can do in this area without detonating the next warhead to move forward. And I think we can get a pretty good view of where we need to go from this building. We ought to be right down a side street from the warhead. Yes, right there. There are a bunch of marked men beyond that, but I'm pretty sure the game spawns them in after the warhead detonates, so no free kills that way. Or by sniping, obviously. Yeah, there's nobody over there. Pity, but it is what it is. Which means we're right across the street from the plaza where you can jump down if you're in a hurry. You can barely see it because of the storm, but that's the alley where I hid after I picked up the detonator and got ambushed. And the street is not where I want to be to detonate the warhead. I think I'll just stay up here. And now, there go the flares. So they're going to come swarming out of there in a second. Oh yeah, as somebody pointed out in the comments to another video recently, the flares they send up aren't a special effect, they're actual weapons. And they can shoot them at you. 2 weeks in a row these guys flushed me out of a nice sniper position. They are not stupid. Well, fine. You want a street fight? I guess you get a street fight. Probably not the kind of street fight they had in mind, but hey, I'm in the street. Can't help myself. There's more up here, but I don't think it's the boss. I think I got him. Anti-materiel rifle. That's almost too good not to take. I'll definitely take the ammo. Armor piercing doesn't grow on trees, and incendiary grenades sound fun. I rarely use grenades, but I did get a nice drama kill with a Molotov in Honest Hearts. Actually, I think Joshua got the kill, but there was still a dude on fire. Oh, where's the last guy? There he is. Speaking of companions stealing my kills, I think Eddie got him. Now let's find Blister. There he is. There are 4 marked man bosses with names and fancy helmets, and I think there's a challenge perk for killing them all. And there's a flare gun, which doesn't do much impact damage, but it sets enemies on fire, and more importantly, it frightens abominations. And oddly, it uses flamer fuel for ammo, not flares. I don't know if they didn't have time in the schedule to create a new ammo type and add it to vendor lists and loot lists or what. And the marked beast helmet isn't bad. I won't be wearing it, but nice souvenir. And again, thanks to the comments, I knew the flare gun makes tunnelers flee, but I forgot it also works on anything in the abomination class. Deathclaws, centaurs, whatever. So that might come in very handy down the line. And there's the next warhead, also one of the mandatory ones. I have mixed feelings about doing stuff at night. It obviously helps with my stealth tactics, but it can also make it hard to see what's going on in the videos. But in this case, it's going to make this very dramatic. There's a line of traffic beyond it leading to the collapsed overpass, and the cars all go up in a chain reaction when the warhead goes off. And that's going to be a ton of rads, so I'll make a second pass for any loot I missed while that cools off. There's a staged event when we enter the collapsed overpass that I missed during the Skill Stash series, so I'll try to catch it this time. If I recall correctly, I was confused because Eddie usually interrupts you to play one of his logs as soon as you're inside, but he didn't that time, and while I was trying to figure out why, I missed the dramatic introduction to the tunnelers.
I don't believe it! Grant actually went to Colonel Autumn and got approval for her damned efficiency guidelines. All experiments will be carried out with the test subject fully active to reduce iteration time. It's barbaric. I've explained this to the Colonel. Just because the iBots don't have true AI doesn't mean they're just machines. I guess results are all that matter around here. Forget things like ethical procedures or humane treatment. I'm starting to have serious misgivings about leadership around here. At least I've got you to talk to, huh, Eddie?
It's very interesting that Whitley himself says Eddie doesn't have a true AI. Which is not to say you can't develop a sentimental attachment to a machine, because of course you can. Whitley was really protective of his iBots, huh? I'm not convinced robots are more than machines, but there's no need to be rude about it either. He must have tried to change things. He doesn't seem like the type to let that slide. Well, let's press on. We've got a lot of ground to cover. And right up here, yes, I'm scared too, Eddie. That's a Deathclaw. But you may notice it's green on the compass, so let's follow it around the corner. Doesn't sound good. Something else runs out of the trailer. And the Deathclaw is dead. If you guessed that was our first glimpse of a tunneler, you guessed correctly. nail gun. Should be able to repair mine close to full condition. Dead NCR trooper. Ulysses said the NCR and Legion both sent forces here to investigate what happened, and the storms and radiation turned them into marked men. Apparently, some of them managed to avoid that fate, but the tunnels weren't any safer. Anyway, the Deathclaw and Tunneler are both initially non-hostile, so they attack each other instead of you. So the game can demonstrate that Tunnelers are really dangerous, which they are. But the Deathclaw is set up with really low hit points to make sure the scene plays out the way it's supposed to. In a straight-up fight, a Deathclaw would take a Tunneler easy. A swarm of Tunnelers, that might be a different story. And they use these holes to teleport around the map, sort of like mole rats or rad scorpions in Fallout 4, so they can sneak up behind you pretty easily. Tunneler hide, that's gotta be a crafting item. Not sure what you can make with it, but if I find a workbench, we'll see. And they won't be non-hostile from here on out, so we need to be really careful through here. Making a mad dash for the exit before they turn hostile while the game is still trying to make its point is a viable strategy, but then we'd miss a lot of stuff. And there you see why the nail gun is so effective with these guys. The bonus limb damage and high rate of fire has a really high chance of staggering them so they can't rush you, especially with a high luck build, so you get a lot of crits. It also helps if they get stuck on the scenery. But there's what I was saying about them using the holes to sneak up behind you. I mean, if you want to be all cynical and meta about it, it's just an excuse for the game to spawn enemies behind you in an area you already cleared, but if so, it's a really elegant excuse, because that's their whole deal plot-wise. To me, it feels like plot came first and the game mechanics were developed to support it. Like lights. They do tend to avoid well-lit areas, and I already talked about how they react to flashbangs and flare guns. Which is not to say that you're safe just because you're standing beside a lamp, but it does seem like they avoid those areas unless they're already aggroed. Which is why this area has so many lamps and vehicles with headlights turned on and so forth. The game is basically giving you a tutorial on how to deal with tunnelers without it being an obvious tutorial. There's another hole. More scared beeping. Dollars to donuts, one's coming out of that hole in a second. The range on this thing isn't that great. More. Where'd the other one go? Back out of the first hole with a buddy. Assuming that's the same one and it isn't still hanging out over to the right someplace. You also have a second or two to react if you spot them when they're emerging from the holes, because they play a climbing out animation, sort of like how ghouls do a threatening aggro animation before they actually attack. Unfortunately, I'm almost out of nails for the nail gun. Guess I'll switch back to the sniper rifle. Another light over there. Any chance there's some ammo? Duffel bag. No nails. Watch these holes. They kind of blend into the rubble, but they usually have green mist coming out of them. More. Mist. Great. Ow. Eddie's down. Yeah. One swipe took down like 10% of my health bar, so you can imagine if you get swarmed, it's not good. And like I said, their attacks have a chance of knockdown, and then it's really not good. Oh, don't worry about Eddie. Most companions can die in hardcore mode, but he can't because he's essential to the plot, so he just gets knocked unconscious like companions in normal mode. Anyway, the exit's right up here, but there's a skill book in this little spur off the main cave to the right. No more tunnelers? Good. And even if you're not running screaming for the exit and you investigate this little barricade, the book is still really easy to miss. Another flare gun. Should be able to get mine close to full condition with that. The book is under the teddy bear in this crate. And it's the explosives book, one of the ones I actually need. So let's read that right now. Duck and cover. Explosives up by 4. Nice. Now, as soon as we exit the collapsed overpass, Ulysses is going to force greet us again. No more tunnelers. And out.
There you are. You went quiet for a time. Knew killing the bear wouldn't prove easy. You and your machine. You survived. There's a lesson here in the divide. Old world history about paving and intentions could teach the Republic a thing or two, if they listened. They have an idea of trying to do what's right, never quite getting there. Maybe you've seen it. Nipton. Elsewhere.
Once again, you're making unwarranted assumptions about my allegiances. Just because I'm idolized by the NCR doesn't mean the feeling is mutual. The threat they pose may be less immediate and more subtle than the Legion, but they're still a threat. And I'm working on ways to deal with that threat, but if you have ideas of your own along those lines, I'd love to hear them.
Yes, and any courier could tell you the same. See it everywhere. The bear. Bear's too busy carving up the Mojave with knives, roads, borders, and how things should be, to see how it is. They're stretched thin, can't protect their front lines, their towns. Think paper's power, radio means control. All of it, useless. No matter now, Bear couldn't hold the divide. You and that machine are all that remains of NCR here. Rest fell to radiation, fire, and what burrows below.
If by paper you mean printing infinite money to pay for unsustainable wars, you're preaching to the choir. But I'm not going to be rude or insult your point of view. I'm going to take the high road. But Jeez. I think you and I could really get along, but you got to work on your sense of humor, man. So if this is the high road, where does it lead?
At the end of the high road lies Ashton. It's Silo. That machine I'm with you. It can open it, wake it up, like it did the one in Hopeville.
Yeah, speaking of Hopeville, when we first spoke there, you mentioned that you'd sworn not to kill me, which is definitely encouraging, but I'm curious why.
You know the why of it. If you don't, I do, and that's enough. Shows trust, only walks so far west. Earned more than that, though, getting this far. We walk the same road, carry the same colors. Can't break that by making the road red. Want more than that? Walk the divide. Answers will come. Closer you get to home. You and that machine.
Perception check. You have a lot of hate for the robot with me. I can hear it in your voice.
Hate? No. There's nothing to hate in metal, steel, gold, or platinum. Your machine. It's just a tool, made of wreckage of the divide. All that was brought here.
I don't like either of these options. The first one is obviously false, so I've never been here before, at least not from this road. Even though I have amnesia, so how would I know?
Many in the Mojave think the divide's nothing but canyon and storm. Wasn't always. There was life. A town farther west. Not talking about an old world town like Hopeville. More recent. Something you saw in your lifetime. It had the name, the divide, too. But rather than cracks in the earth, it was a road from the west into the Mojave, a supply line. Took a courier to make that road. You. Back then, you saw the road with eyes facing east. This time, the divide's in the other direction. And if your eyes try to make sense of it when you reach it, home's not what it was.
What makes you think this leads home?
All roads lead back to one's home. Not your birthplace, maybe, but home. Home isn't where you were born into this world. You taught me that. Part of your message, whether you meant it or not, can be a place of mind, a moment where you know who you are, the history of it, and they can be places you breathe life into. Never would have known the divide had it not been for you. The road you made with your tracks again and again. You were the only one willing to make the journey to and from here. A hard road. Kept the land before the divide alive through seasons, storms. Can't have been just a job. Was something more to you. Don't feel for a place that hard unless it's home.
I mentioned this last week, that our first conversation with Ulysses recontextualizes the "you can go home" courier graffiti. Like, before you meet him, you probably assume it's a reminder that you can turn around, leave the divide, let sleeping dogs lie. But he's saying the courier's home is ahead where he is, and he wants us to see it. So now, "you can go home" courier seems like it might be an invitation, a temptation to move forward. Just a very cool double meaning to it. And I don't like any of these options either. Amnesia? But I've walked a lot of hard roads, Mojavian before. Doesn't mean anything.
It means everything. Even if you deny it, cast it aside, that speaks to what you are. Proves what happened here. It was you walking that road that kept the divide alive. It grew from what you did. Settlers, camps, filling that old world city. Chance for a new nation, new beginning, new way of thinking. Could have breathed new life into the Mojave, bridging east, west, like Hoover Dam. But not old world. Something you made. Road was a supply line.
And again, accusing him of making assumptions is absurd. He could easily know more about it than I do. He might be lying, sure, but I have no way of knowing that. I'm the one making assumptions. And just because there's no other supply line now doesn't mean there wasn't one a few years ago, or however long ago it happened. Fortunately, there is an option I like this time. It's probably best if you just tell me what happened.
NCR saw the worth in that road you made. Staked a claim, whether it was wanted there or not. True elsewhere in the Mojave. And where the bear tries to cling to life, the Legion comes, bearing messages. Some brought by blade, others by couriers. You knew what was coming, as sure as I know what's coming for you. This time you carry the burden. Walk west into the sun and keep walking until it dies. There, I'll be waiting.
I can't help but notice we're actually facing east into the rising sun, but we will turn back west eventually. Now, there's a small group of marked men at the top of this ramp, and one of them is one of the bosses I mentioned. And while Courier Jeff obviously doesn't know that, we're walking into the sun, poor visibility, we're going to be sneaky. There's a sidewalk at the edge of the ramp, give us a little extra height, see what's going on a little better. Anybody up there? Yes. Missed. Missed again. Oh, grenade. Ow. Well, could have gone better, but it could have been worse. And there's Beast. Another fancy helmet. And he has a shoulder-mounted machine gun. We saw one last week, but I had to leave it because I was almost at the encumbrance limit. I think this would probably be the first time you get one if you were playing at a lower level, but since I'm almost level 50, even random marked men can spawn with them. Or I might just be making that up, but the first time I ever played this DLC, I remember being really excited when I looted his body and saw what he'd been shooting me with. And there's a commissary terminal on this truck. Scared beeping. Excited beeping. Make up your mind. There are enemies around, but I'd be really psyched about unlocking that terminal for you. There he goes. Okay, I sold some stuff I didn't need to keep, topped up ammo, and bought all the mods it had for the shoulder-mounted machine gun. I didn't install them yet because if some emergency comes up and I need to drop it, I'd be throwing away 30,000 caps. And yeah, I don't think I've been this broke since I left Doc Mitchell's house. It didn't have any doctor's bags for sale, so I used some Hydra to heal my crippled limbs, got addicted, and used some Fixer to cure my addiction. I also ate some cave fungus to take care of my hunger and rads, and drank some more purified water to keep my thirst under control. And if all those effects are done wearing off, I think we're ready to roll. Or we would be if I wasn't stuck. That's great. I'm like a walking PSA. This is what happens if you do too many drugs, kids. Now, one interesting thing that's really easy to miss, whenever Ulysses talks to you through Eddie, he's always nearby. I don't know if he needs proximity to make the connection. He did just say he lost the signal when we were in the collapsed overpass, but, you know, tunnels and cell phones, right? Or maybe he's just keeping tabs on your progress and strikes up a chat when he sees you. Whatever the case, he's up there in that tower. There he is. He's watching us. And there he goes. So right up ahead, where one building fell onto the one Ulysses was in, there's a, marked man. They have a little camp around a warhead. It's not one of the mandatory ones. I think it's just there to get some free kills. That should have taken care of the rest of them. Okay, so I didn't notice Ulysses the first time I played this, or ever, really. I only learned about it on the Fallout Wiki much later. But it probably won't surprise you that trying to climb this toppled skyscraper was pretty much top of my agenda the first time I saw it. And imagine my delight when not only was it possible, but there's some really good loot up there. Ulysses flag graffiti. I mentioned last week that we saw them in Old World Blues too, and he confirmed he's the one who made them, but I'm pretty sure the only ones there are blue for loot, like that one, and red for danger. In Lonesome Road, there are also white ones for go this way to find me. Anyway, the first interesting thing up here is that there's a dead NCR soldier. Not a marked man who used to be NCR with makeshift armor cobbled together from what they used to wear, but with intact armor. Ooh, ton of 308 ammo. And advanced riot gear, which is some of the best medium armor in the game, but I don't wear armor because it makes you easier to detect and slows you down. But if we take his helmet, don't know if radiation turned him into a ghoul, but he was protected from the storms, so he didn't change into a marked man. Or the NCR does have ghouls in the military, so if they knew the area they were going to be scouting was irradiated, they might have sent some of them. But either way, not a marked man. Although, given his proximity to the marked men downstairs and the flag graffiti, I'm not sure what to read into that. Ulysses said the marked men hate him as much as they hate us, and he typically only puts the blue markers on places that are safe. And there's one of his logs. So he must have put the graffiti there before the marked men made camp beside it. But I can't imagine him being buddy-buddy with an NCR soldier, given his obvious contempt for the NCR, so I'm guessing that guy was already dead by the time Ulysses got here. But I can't ignore the possibility that Ulysses killed him and moved in for a while, because it is an excellent position. Not saying Ulysses necessarily murdered him. If the soldier was cut off and desperate long enough to draw the conclusion that everything here is hostile, he might have taken the first shot and Ulysses just defended himself. And the fact that he was a ghoul brings up what might be a missed opportunity in the game that I have mixed feelings about. The NCR and Legion troops were turned into marked men by the supposedly pervasive radiation and the storms, but except for warheads and the occasional obvious hazard like radioactive waste barrels, there just isn't that much radiation in the Divide. And even at its worst, the storm doesn't hurt the player at all. Like back at the marked men camp in Hopeville, where we could barely see because there was so much sand in the wind. And I'm glad I have the light step perk, or that satchel charge would have blown me right off the building. Anyway, it seems like they could have made the environment slowly erode your health when you're outside, like the villa in Dead Money. On the other hand, that sucks, so I'm glad they didn't. On the other hand, ghouls have necrotic skin that tends to fall off anyway, so maybe the abrasion from the sandstorm isn't enough to hurt normal human skin, but if you turn into a ghoul, it strips it right off. I don't know. Whatever the case, the next 100 yards of road looked safe, but that won't last. I want to listen to the logs we've picked up, but I want to do it when we have a few minutes apiece. I don't want to miss signs of an ambush because I'm paying attention to the recording, and I don't want to miss some important detail in the tapes because I get distracted fighting in the middle of listening to one. Money, but not much else in here. Ammo. But something spawned outside. All the 308. Totally worth it. Now, what is it? Sounds like a Deathclaw. Yep, Deathclaw. More than one by the compass. Back to hidden now. Another warhead. Well, I'm not going to turn down the chance to catch a couple Deathclaws in the blast. Where are they? I don't see them. Oh, there's one. That's not close enough to kill it. I could bait them over here on purpose, but honestly, the more distance, the better when you're dealing with Deathclaws. So is remembering your hotkeys. It's a good thing it was almost dead from the nuke, or that could have been very ugly. Let's not do that again. 3 is nail gun, 4 is sniper rifle, 5 is detonator. 1 is stim packs, obviously. That never changes, except in those situations where the game strips my gear and all my hotkeys reset automatically. 2 supposedly cycles through ammo types for your current weapon, and it can't be changed, but it doesn't work on my PC for some reason, so that slot's just wasted. And this is a new item in Lonesome Road. Bedroll Kit allows you to sleep just about anywhere out under the stars. Select it in your Pip-Boy and sleep your cares away. I don't know if that counts as an owned bed. In hardcore mode, you only heal when you sleep in an owned bed. Other beds just reduce your sleep meter. But we'll probably find out sometime before this is all over. That's how we want to be dealing with Deathclaws. Up close and personal is not Courier Jeff's style. Compass says there's at least one more. There it is. I mentioned this in the Skills Dash series too, but I think one of the reasons this DLC spawns enemies behind you or around you so often is to keep Eddie's companion perk from being too overpowered. because you can see stuff on the compass miles away when he's with you. Rad barrels. We'll skirt around that on the other side. Still back there?
All due respect, sir, I think you're making a mistake. We're close to a breakthrough with the Duraframe iBots. I can feel it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I understand that we need the Duraframe assets for Hellfire armor, but... No, sir. Yes, sir. I understand, sir. I'll tell the team to start disassembling the ED series prototypes right away. Eddie, you little rascal, were you eavesdropping again? I think those videos you watch are a bad influence on you. How much of that did you hear? Didn't Dr. Grant say she'd upgraded your navigational systems? And I think I have an idea. How'd you like to be just like Ralphie?
With some oddly coincidental timing for Eddie to play one of his logs. Do you record everything that's said around you? Really? Well, I'd better be careful what I say around you, huh? Actually, I would like to hear your recordings of human mating calls. Do you have video, too? That's actually one of my lines of business. You might be pretty handy to have around the studio. But sadly, asking to hear them isn't an option. So in lieu of that, sounds like Dr. Whitley was a bit of a rogue element. Yeah, I think I would have liked him. Okay, let's get going. Now, I know where the quest marker is taking us, but Courier Jeff doesn't. And although he'll figure out that it isn't that building as soon as we move far enough to triangulate, there does appear to be some loot on the roof. Somewhere along here it'll be safe to jump down. Oh, yeah. Jumping down to the roof might be another story, of course. I know you can go around the long way, but I'm actually curious. Yeah. Oh, that's totally doable. We probably can't get back up, but that's okay because I want to go down to the rest stop anyway. This just saves us walking all the way back here from there. Lone Wanderer Jeff might be happy to drink an Iron City in the pit for old time's sake, but I'll pass on beer that's been baking in the desert sun for 200 years. I don't care what kind of preservatives they used on pre-war food in the Fallout universe. And that should be the rest stop right down there. Ammo. Yeah, this is the rest stop. I feel fine. Warhead. Junction 7 rest stop, which we definitely don't want to miss because there's something very important upstairs. Doctor's bag. Could have used that earlier. Drop chems, not bombs. Just don't get so high you can't figure out how to climb out of a pothole. And what we're looking for is in this cabinet. Not the magazine, although I'll take that too. The Lonesome Road snow globe. Very nice. Now, let's blow up that warhead. Somewhat bitter irony, considering the sentiments of the previous residents of the rest stop, but what can you do? Red on the compass. They probably spawned when I picked up the snow globe, and if I'd waited a few seconds, they might have been in range of the explosion. Or they might just be on top of the freeway. Yeah, judging from the compass, that's where they are. Well, in that case, no worries. Just be careful for a minute. Yeah, back to hidden. If we don't have to fight them, I'm fine with that. I was joking around about the anti-war graffiti, but I agree wholeheartedly with the sentiment. It's just that in the post-apocalypse, you don't always have that luxury. Caution again. Danger. Eddie's unconscious? What the... Oh boy. That went sideways in a hurry. Fortunately, I have plenty of ammo for the nail gun. Yeah, there's what I was talking about. I think they only hit me a couple times and half my health bar is gone. I mean, I wasn't at full health to begin with, but that was maybe a quarter of my health bar in 2 or 3 hits. So you can see why I have the nail gun hotkeyed. Oh good, a Deathclaw heard all the commotion and decided to join the party. That's what was up on the freeway. And we're hidden again. Now, I don't think the warhead exposes any loot. It must just be there to take care of those tunnelers when they spawn if you're patient. Which sometimes I'm not. There is still red on the compass. Probably another Deathclaw on the freeway. See if we can climb up these rocks and get a better look. Loot. In fact, this might be how you get to Ulysses' next log. I know there's a hidden campfire in the rocks near the Smitty sign, and I'm going to be a little bit embarrassed if this is an easy way to get to it, because I usually spend 10 minutes trying to climb the cliff around the tunnel entrance. Yes. That's great. There's that Deathclaw. One less thing to worry about sneaking up behind me. Anything good in this trailer? MREs. Medical supplies, water. That's all good stuff. And the campfire should be just off to the side of the trailer. Yeah, right here. More loot. Who needs pre-war food when you have MREs? Healing powder. There's no way I'm ever going to use that. And most importantly, the log, right here. And once again, I'm going to wait and listen to that when I'm sure we have a few minutes of peace. Now, from here, we just need to go back up the road and take the off-ramp to Ashton. In fact, we can just jump over to it right here. No more Deathclaws. Doesn't look like it. There's a marked man camp off to one side before we get to the silo, and there are satchel charges hidden in the debris on the road. They're really hard to spot because their color blends in with the scenery better than other mines, and they have an extremely short fuse. So this can be a nightmare if you don't have the light step perk, which fortunately I do. They might be further up the road. I don't see any yet. There's one. They're a little easier to spot with the sun behind you. If you're doing this in the morning when you're heading into the sun and everything is kind of washed out, it's a nightmare. Does Eddie set them off? Because that would be bad. Apparently not. Most companions do set off mines, and even though Eddie looks like he floats, he really doesn't. His 3D model doesn't have any legs, but as far as the game engine is concerned, he walks on the ground like any other character. That's why he can only go places where the player can walk, even though sometimes it would be handy to have him just fly across a gap and do something instead of figuring out how to get across it yourself. He must have the light step perk too, or some NPC equivalent. Anyway, more satchel charges. If you want to avoid the blind spot under the fallen tower, you can go up the hill and around it. They're not a problem for me, but it's good to know if you don't have the light step perk. And in fact, this might let us get eyes on the marked men camp. They usually don't come out if you just run straight past the intersection toward the silo, but there's some stuff back there I want to get. Red flag from Ulysses. Thanks for the warning, but I'm going anyway. I see red on the compass, but nobody in this first building. There are usually a few in that big building. Well, there's one right there. Well, apparently that was the boss. I thought there were 4, but I guess there are only 3. Probably not the glorious death in battle he was hoping for, but on the bright side, he didn't have much time to be disappointed about it. There's one. And I'm in caution, so the other one's probably... No, back to hidden. We keep going in and out of caution, so he knows something's up, which, fair enough. The first clue was probably his roommate's head exploding. But now he's not lonely anymore. Well, it looks like all of them, so let's go check what was on the boss. Chainsaw. Nice for a melee character, not Courier Jeff's style. Another fancy helmet. Alright, loot the camp and then go find the good stuff. Here at the very back, there is a warhead. And I really hope it's not close enough to make that truck explode, or this might hurt. Good. And this one does expose some hidden loot. It's kind of dark, but you can see a cave back there. See what's in these crates while the cave cools off. Rockets. They're not that heavy, but assuming I ever have a good opportunity to show off red glare, and I actually remember to do it, I have plenty. Cave should be cooled off by now, so let's see what's in there. Unusual containers. Lead-lined metal box. Lots of good stuff. My flare gun's at full condition, so I don't need that. More meds. And more meds. Pretty good haul. But my real reason for coming back here was chasing the achievement for detonating all 30 warheads. Coming straight out of the marked men camp, the fallen tower we avoided is down there, and right here on the right is the Ashton missile silo entrance. There's one of the white flags that says we're going the right way. And momentarily, Eddie will unlock this console. But I'm already carrying a lot of loot. Construction hat. I tried to get one of these in Old World Blues, but I accidentally kicked it into a pool of lava. And an industrial hand. Very nice for an unarmed specialist, but it weighs 10 pounds and I'll never use it. Still, I want it as a souvenir. Well, that settles it. Opening the silo kicks off a lengthy series of events, so I wouldn't have a chance to run home for quite some time. So I'm going to head back and we can listen to Ulysses' tapes on the way, since the enemies shouldn't have had time to respawn yet. Okay, the game crashed halfway through Ulysses' first tape, and my last save was all the way back here at the commissary terminal. So I'm going to call it a day and redo all that off screen. I'll try to do everything the same way, but there'll probably be some minor differences in my ammo, supplies, XP, whatever. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you next week.